Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're going to learn about a name you might not recognize, but whose story is intertwined with something many of us interact with almost every day: books.
Oh, I like the
Books. Specifically, the craft of bookbinding.
Okay.
We're going to be taking a deep dive into the life of Edith Diehl.
All right.
And you provided me with some really fascinating information about her life and work, including some excerpts from, let's see here, Wikipedia, and also a blog post from a modern-day bookbinder. So should we just jump in?
Let's unlock this. I like that unlocking a story because it is. With Edith Diehl, it's not just dates and achievements. We get to really see how her world shaped her craft and how she, in turn, sort of reshaped our view of what a craftsperson can be. I think that's really cool.
I'm excited to have my view reshaped.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, the late 19th, early 20th century.
Right.
When women's roles were often very prescribed. And yet, here's Edith, born in 1876, who seemingly was already pushing against some of those boundaries. I mean, she graduated from Wellesley College in 1904.
Wow.
Not exactly the norm for a woman at that time.
And let's be clear, like Wellesley's not just any institution, right? Even today, it's considered one of, if not the top women's college.
Wow.
So for her to not just go there, but to thrive there, and then to continue her studies in Germany after that in philosophy, this is not someone who was going to be content with a life that was, confined by what other people expected of her.
Right. And so she graduates from this esteemed women's college. She's surrounded by books, right? Yeah. But she doesn't just become an avid reader, though I'm sure she was.
Right.
She decides, I want to learn how to make these.
Yeah.
Like what?
How cool is that?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like it's like this interesting, I don't know, like paradox where she falls in love with this object, this perfectly bound book.
Right.
But it's like she wants to deconstruct it.
Totally.
To understand like the construction of it, I think that's really cool.
And she didn't, she dives head first into this.
Yeah, she does. And not just any kind of bookbinding. This is hand binding, which is just so meticulous and detail oriented. Like, wow.
I know. It's amazing. And again, this wasn't a casual interest for her. It was a calling, right? And she went after it with the same rigor that she applied to her studies. She didn't just want to gabble in it, right? Yeah. She sought out, the masters in the field. Like she trained with Florence Foote and Evelyn Nordhoff in New York City, then traveled to England to study with the renowned Thomas Cobden Sanderson. I mean, it's that's like getting your PhD in a bookbinding.
It's like the most prestigious.
From the best institution. It's incredible.
And that really speaks to, her dedication shines through, I think, especially, you mentioned this blog post.
Right.
From a modern day bookbinder named Jeff Peachey.
Yeah.
And he actually owns a hammer.
That's right.
That used to belong to Edith Diehl.
Yeah.
And not just any hammer. It's a London pattern cramping hammer. So this is a beast of a tool. Yeah. More commonly found in a shoemaker's workshop.
Okay. Now I have to ask, what is a bookbinder doing with a shoemaker's hammer? What's the story there?
It's such a great little detail, and Peachey talks about this. Diehl specifically chose this type of hammer. She was very particular at it. She preferred a heavy hammer. She wanted it to have some weight to it.
Okay.
And it had to be perfectly balanced because she believed that it provided the right amount of force and control. And, especially when you're working with, delicate pages, the last thing you want to do is whack it too hard.
No, absolutely not.
And so it speaks to, again, her attention to detail. That's incredible. It's like she saw this connection between this seemingly simple tool and this artistry of her craft. It's it's not brute force.
It's precision.
It's precision engineering, but bookbinding.
Yeah.
Which is really fascinating.
Yeah. And this attention to detail that you see with the hammer, it carries through in all of her work, even, and we'll get into it, but even beyond just the bookbinding.
Yeah.
World War I completely upends life as she knows it, right? But does Edith Diehl just retreat to her bindery and just kind of wait it out?
Right.
Not a chance.
No, she jumped into action.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I'm reading here, she threw herself into war work with the American Red Cross.
Yeah.
Which is quite a,
It's quite a contrast.
It is a stark contrast.
Right. From meticulously creating these books to the chaos of wartime relief efforts. It's got to be so different.
You would think so, and yet it speaks to her adaptability. Because imagine this. Here's this woman, known for this precision, artistry, and bookbinding, and she applies those same qualities to organizing over 500 Red Cross workrooms,
Wow.
significantly increasing their bandage production. I mean, talk about, taking your organizational skills
Right.
and putting them to work
Yeah.
in a very different context. And there's even mention of her, implementing electrically operated cutters to boost efficiency, which, this is the 19-teens we're talking about.
Electrically operated cutters in the 19-teens. Come on.
Right. So again, this wasn't just traditional women's work.
Right.
She was bringing a modern, almost like an industrial efficiency to it, while still maintaining that core value of, meticulous execution. It makes you wonder if she saw some kind of parallels between, the careful assembly of a book and the organization of wartime supplies, right?
Yeah.
Both requiring order, precision in the midst of potential chaos.
Wow, that's actually a really fascinating point. I hadn't thought about it that way. Whereas her background in bookbinding almost set her up for that.
You could almost see that.
Like in leadership and logistics.
Yeah.
Because it's like she understood systems. Right?
Right.
And how every element had to work together seamlessly.
Exactly.
And whether it's binding a book or mobilizing resources for the war effort, it's all connected.
And this wasn't just a brief wartime effort for her either, right? In 1917, she takes on the Women's Land Army.
Oh.
She ends up leading this national movement.
The Women's Land Army. See, that's something I don't know a lot about.
Yeah.
So picture this. With so many men away fighting in World War I, there's this massive labor shortage on farms across the country.
Yeah, and food production doesn't exactly wait for wars to end, right? People still got to eat.
Enter Edith Diehl, stage left, ready to tackle yet another challenge.
She's amazing.
So what exactly did the Women's Land Army do?
So they basically stepped into these roles that were traditionally held by men on the farms, right? So planting, harvesting, managing livestock, making sure that the home front was staying fed while the war was going on.
Right.
And Edith became the director of the Women's Land Army training camp, literally preparing women from all walks of life to do this incredibly physically demanding but essential work.
I mean, it's just incredible to think about her navigating these totally different spheres.
Yeah.
From the quiet precision of her bindery to then the logistical challenges of the Red Cross, and then leading this agricultural movement. It's really quite something.
It really speaks to her diverse skills and her ability to lead in times of just immense change.
Right, and through it all, she never abandoned this love of bookbinding, which brings us to her book, right?
Yes.
Bookbinding, its background and technique, which I understand even today is considered a must-read for bookbinding enthusiasts.
It's true.
Published in 1946. So
sure. Yeah, and what's remarkable about it is that it's not just a how-to manual, right?
Right.
She obviously delves into all the practical techniques, but she goes deeper.
Okay.
She explores the history of bookbinding, the different styles, the aesthetic philosophies behind it.
It's like she saw bookbinding as this thread that was woven through history and art and culture.
Absolutely. And she understood that, a well-bound book wasn't just an object.
Right.
It was a vessel for ideas, for stories, for knowledge that was meant to, be shared across generations.
It makes you wonder, too, if her experiences, especially during the war, I'm thinking about specifically with the Red Cross, and seeing firsthand the fragility of life and the upheaval of war, I wonder if that influenced her perspective on the power of books.
Yeah.
And their ability to connect people across time and distance.
Oh, that's such a good point. I mean, here she was witnessing firsthand, the chaos and the destruction that a war brings, and yet she remained dedicated to this craft that at its core is about preserving knowledge, preserving beauty for future generations. I mean, it's such a powerful juxtaposition. I don't know if that's the right word, but
no, but I get what you're saying. It's
this act of creation.
Yeah, this act of creation in the face of potential destruction.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's almost like she's making this statement about the enduring power of human ingenuity and creativity.
100%, yeah. And this might seem like a little bit of a leap, but bear with me.
Okay.
Okay, so we live in a digital age, right? We are surrounded by screens.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet here we are, still captivated by this art of bookbinding.
Right.
So my question is, what is it about this ancient craft that continues to resonate with us?
That's a great question. It really is. It really, I think, speaks to something very fundamental about the human experience, right? Because, like, yes, we live in this fast-paced digital world, but I think there's this enduring appreciation for craftsmanship, right?
100%.
For things that are tangible,
Yeah.
for things that are made with this care and precision
It's true.
that maybe we've lost a little bit,
Yeah.
in other aspects of.
And maybe it's also the permanence of it.
Yes.
Right, the feeling of holding something lasting in a world that often feels very fleeting and ephemeral.
Yes. Like in a world of instant downloads and, disposable content.
Totally.
This handcrafted book, especially one that's been, bound with the care and precision that Edith Diehl championed.
Right.
It's like a different pace of life, right?
It is.
It's this commitment to quality, to longevity.
I love that word. Yeah.
That maybe, yeah, like you said, maybe we've lost a little bit of it, and it's nice to be reminded of that, I think.
It's like a counterpoint to the digital age in so many ways.
It is.
It's this reminder that some things are worth taking the time to create and savor.
100%, yeah. And I think, even more importantly, it's like Edith Diehl's story reminds us that it's never too late, right? To find your passion, to master a new skill, to make a difference in the world. And it doesn't have to be this big, grand gesture.
Exactly.
It can be as simple as dedicating yourself to a craft.
Right.
To creating something beautiful and enduring,
Absolutely. And that dedication, that pursuit of excellence, it can ripple outwards.
Totally.
And inspire others in ways that you might never imagine.
It's funny because we often associate bookbinding with this image of, like, quiet contemplation.
Yeah, it's very meditative, right?
Of someone, painstakingly, like, working alone in a bindery. But, Edith Diehl's story really challenges that notion, doesn't it?
It really does. She wasn't content to simply exist within, like, the confines of her craft, right? She saw the bigger picture. She saw how her skills could be used to connect with others, to serve a greater purpose.
And she did it in so many different ways,
It's such different arenas, too, like, from this meticulous...
From meticulously binding a book to then, like, organizing Red Cross workrooms to mobilizing women for the war effort. It's like she brought that same, like, meticulous driven spirit to everything that she did.
Totally. And you know what it makes me think is, like, what if she approached every task with the same question?
Well, good.
Like, how can I make this work better, more efficiently, more beautifully?
Oh, that's good, yeah.
And I think that's such an important reminder that even seemingly solitary crafts can have this ripple effect,
Yeah.
extending outwards into the world and inspiring positive change.
100%, yeah. No, that's a great point.
Yeah.
It's almost like she saw connections where others saw divisions, right? Like between art and practicality, solitary craft, and social action. I don't know. I think it's an inspiring outlook, really.
And one that resonates, I think even more so today when, I think about how often we're told to specialize, right? Find your niche,
Right.
Edith Diehl's life is like, no, we contain multitudes, right?
Yeah.
We can be masters of our craft and engaged citizens and detail-oriented and big-picture thinkers all at the same time.
It makes her story all the more remarkable, And to think it all kind of circles back to this love of books, of bookbinding.
And her dedication to sharing that love with others.
Right.
Like through her teaching, through her writing, through, her insistence on using the best tools for the job, like that hefty hammer that Peachey described. She ensured that her knowledge and her passion would continue to resonate even after she was gone.
Speaking of that hammer, there was something else that Peachey said in his blog post.
Okay.
That I love this detail. He was talking about how, just holding it, feeling the weight of it, the smooth worn areas on the handle, like it gave him this tangible connection.
Wow.
To her craft, to her legacy.
It's like you're touching history.
Yeah, I know. I got chills, honestly, when I read that. I was like, oh, it's so...
Right. It's like, it's such a powerful image. And in a way, those tools become, vessels of memory, right? They
Yes.
carry forward the stories of the people who use them. It makes you wonder, like, what other treasures might be tucked away in attics and antique shops, just waiting to be discovered
I know.
and to share their
It
stories.
makes you want to go on, like, a historical object treasure hunt.
Right. Imagine finding something that Edith Diehl used every day.
Oh, my gosh.
We'd be holding a piece of her story, a
Yeah.
tangible link to a bygone era.
And a reminder, too,
Yeah, also, yeah.
that even seemingly ordinary objects, right,
Yes.
can hold these really extraordinary stories.
100%, yeah.
I love that. It's like she's reaching through time, reminding us of the power of dedication, of craftsmanship, of using your skills to make the world a little better, a little more beautiful, even in the midst of chaos.
It's a beautiful thought.
Yeah, it's a really powerful message, and one that I think, we can all learn from, really.
Absolutely. Edith Diehl's story is a testament to the idea that a life well lived is often a life that bridges these seemingly disparate worlds,
Yeah.
that finds connections where others see divisions, and that those connections, those acts of bridging, have the power to inspire us, to challenge us, and to ultimately leave the world a little bit richer than we found it.
It's certainly given me a lot to think about. Edith Diehl, bookbinder, humanitarian, a leader, and really a reminder that even a seemingly ordinary life can be extraordinary when lived with passion and purpose. Gosh, what a journey this deep dive has been.
I couldn't agree more. And maybe, just maybe, like that well-crafted book, her story will continue to be passed down,
I hope so.
inspiring future generations to find their own unique ways to make their mark on the world.
And on that note, we come to the end of our deep dive into the fascinating life of Edith Diehl. We hope you enjoyed exploring her story with us. Until next time, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the stories that shape our world.